and David is our Disabilities Ambassador. David is one of these people who just makes us all feel so inadequate at everything that he's done. So much so that I'm actually going to have to read this out because there's no way I'm going to remember all of this.
Leave it to me.
So,
put it down.
Okay, so far to date, David has been a finalist in the top 10 outstanding young persons in Dublin 2018. He is the innovation pioneer at the Rehab Group, where his projects have included creating smart rooms for people with disabilities to live more independently. He has also been an Institute of the Future Fellow for his work on positive platforms to support people with disabilities in employment. David is the organiser of Hack Access Dublin. He has a passion for education and organises Digital Citizenship Summit Ireland. Founder of Learning Tech Labs, David also organises Ireland's Tech Stars and Google for Entrepreneur Startup Weekend. David also founded an inclusive coding network. I'm skipping stuff. He also founded an inclusive coding network at Trinity College Dublin and is the Irish Ambassador for the electronic platform for adult learning in Europe and European Maker Week, 2 European Commission projects.
Thanks, Don. I'm usually white, but I'm red now. So I work in the area of disabilities. Just for anyone who does have a visual impairment or is blind, what I usually do is kind of describe my photo, which is a really bad Britney Spears impersonator auditioning to be a T-Rex in the new Jurassic Park movie. So that's kind of what it looks like. So I'm going to just get that off the screen really quickly, and I'm going to talk to you about how employers can be a little bit more inclusive for people with disabilities. This figure here, 643,131, the amount of people in Ireland who have a disability. One of my friends here in the crowd, if I can find them, Talita. Talita is an entrepreneur who's working in the area of disabilities as well, supporting people with intellectual disabilities to get from A to B, and actually pitched this and said it to one of the people that she was trying to pitch to, and was told, no, that's not. That can't be true, that can't be true. So Talita did say to me that this is actually from the census. So unless the census is wrong, I think we need to start to look at educating people a little bit more in this area. So this is about 13% of the current population. So the easy way to kind of visualize that is we've got about 4.7 million people here in Ireland. Pretty much that 0.7 are people with disabilities. So I'm going to talk to you just briefly about some of the different areas that we can support people. My background, you can forget all that stuff. I was a builder for 5 years. So I was shoveling cement, literally building ramps up to houses, trying to renovate all the state houses, make them more inclusive, more accessible for people with disabilities. Then I went back to college, went into a classroom because nobody wants to take on anybody who has a building background, because I had no other educational background. Started working with young adults who have learning disabilities, and with autism, and with physical disabilities. And it was really fun. You just kind of, it pulls you in, and little by little I started to involve educational technologies, different things like that, and then into innovation where you could kind of make a little bit bigger impact and work on some of those projects. So these are kind of the things that I see we can kind of tap on a little bit, like, because it's so deep and it's so diverse and there's so much in it, and I'm sure for each one of the topics, I'm sure all the ambassadors will agree, you can only briefly touch on the top of it, so I'll do that really quick. So employment, entrepreneurship, and products and services. So we can, Carl, if you can pop on, thanks. So we're looking at employment initially. 4 times. People with disabilities are 4 times less likely to go into employment. And they're also more likely to drop out when they're in. So clearly there's a couple of things there that we need to start to look at. According to the ISR, the research, it's about less than 33% of people within the working age who have a disability are actually employed at the moment. So that's like 33% of, if we look at it now, if we just split it there, you're working, the rest of you are not. Like it's just not how it should be. So we have a lot of work around education to go into there. And we can skip on real quick. So this is how I see we can start to work on this. First of all, education. One of the biggest reasons for people with disabilities not to go into employment is actually because they don't have access to the same education. Their education is not as good as perhaps people who don't have a disability. So we need to start looking at the education system, and as an educator I guess I'm a little bit biased, but we do have a lot of things to work on there. No, stay where you are. Trying to get me to get off stage as quick as possible. Interview processes as well. I'm sure we've all been there where we've been super nervous. We've gone into the interview and we've gone, this is just like, I can feel this. But for somebody who maybe has a disability, whether maybe they have autism, for example, or they've got ADHD, going into an interview process is even more intense. Like, there's a lot more that goes through their mind. So one of my friends, actually based here in Dublin, Johnny Cosgrove, has created these virtual meeting rooms where people can actually work remotely, but also then he was telling me about, you can actually go into interviews and do your interviews in a virtual world. So for someone with autism, perhaps, you can just cut out all the stress of having to go into a new building, and you can actually go in and meet the people who you're going to interview with. You can scan their faces. It takes like 2 seconds now. But it's about getting employers comfortable with that, because I know if I go to my boss, or if you go to your boss, they'll probably go, no, that's just not going to happen. But we can start those conversations. And again, accessibility. Just even getting into a building, getting into employment. They're little things. I was in Maynooth recently. There was a bank, not this bank, and on the street there's an accessible door and there's a step to the accessible door. So I don't. Yeah. Okay, let's keep on. So then we've talked about, so people are 4 times less likely to get into employment, but then also more likely to drop out. And this is what we need to start to look at as well from when people are actually in the workplace. The supports that are there. Do employers know what supports that they should give someone? So, for example, we're in a co-working space and the lights are on. And just for a second, just think about the person beside you. Have they got perfume on? Maybe they're bumping into you. Maybe they're rustling something, they've got something in their hands. But if I start talking, you'll suddenly forget that and you'll come back to normal and everything will be absolutely fine. And it won't bother you. But for somebody who perhaps is on the autistic spectrum, those are the senses that they're constantly having to work with and to do their job at the same time. And you can imagine that that gets a little bit, you get overstimulated at times. So how many people here know if their company has a quiet space that perhaps someone can go if they are feeling a little bit overstimulated? Okay, so not too many, not too many. Has anyone used it? I can understand why. But you start to realise, like, there's obviously a little bit of work that needs to be done there. Understanding and culture, they're intertwined. Understanding your colleagues, understanding that perhaps they have different needs to you, maybe you have different needs to them. Having conversation on that. Do you need some space? Do you need some time? Whatever it might be, and then changing the culture. Having these discussions, having the opportunity to do it. We on Tuesday, there was a few of you guys that were here as well. Where is Ruchi texting at the back? So Dr. Ruchi, I'm going to give you her full title because I know you did it. Was talking about accessibility, and she was saying that, and it was really good. I thought a disability is not a take one get one free. You know. You don't have to shout at someone who's blind, because it's not like they might not have a hearing disability as well. So I think it's good to be aware of these things, just understand how to talk to people. And one of the people at that event actually said, how do I talk to somebody? Like, how do I talk to someone who has a disability? And Gary Carney, who's one of the hosts on Dublin City FM, a brain injury survivor, said, you just talk to us. Like, you just ask. We'll tell you if you make a mistake. And he said, we don't bite. And then someone down the back who had a disability said, well, sometimes we do. Okay, so we'll switch on again. Then there's the entrepreneurship side. It's not just good enough to have people who are in employment who have a disability, and that's good, that's fantastic. But what about the entrepreneurial side? Giving them a platform, giving people a platform to actually go and set up their own businesses. Maybe to create solutions to challenges that are maybe not solved at the moment. And these are some of the ways that perhaps you can get involved. These are all free, so I'm not plugging anything. Startup Week Dublin, it's going to happen 12th to the 16th of November. We're going to have a diversity and inclusion track, and I'm roping you in to be our captain. And I'm also, we have two right down the back there who have said they're going to run one of our events. Can you tell us what one of those events are going to be?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so we're running an event for immigrant entrepreneurs. So the idea is to do speech mentorship for one night. So it's going to be about 2 hours, 20 mentors to 20 immigrant entrepreneurs who are just starting out and want to meet as many impressive people as possible.
Thanks so much. Hackx at Dublin as well is a free event, 3-day event. It's based around looking at the challenges around mobility in the city. People going in, given their ideas, we provide mentorship, we provide in terms of engineers, techies, whatever it might be, and then at the end we're supported by Dublin City Council to make that actually be sustainable moving forward, which I think is really key. So if you do have an idea and you want to try it out, please do come along. If you can't make the whole thing, pitch your idea, maybe a team will take that on board.